IPMNation.com.
All Natural Being. Warning, All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy is designed to shake your sense of self to the core.
It's full contact psychology with an empowering twist, a philosophical loofah for your soul.
For those of you not ready or comfortable releasing your inner superhuman, listener discretion is advised.
Here's your host,
Brian Brawdy.
Welcome to All Natural Being. As the announcer says, I'm Brian, and I'm very fired up to have you here with us. As you know, if you've been listening for a while, this is a show about you. I like the idea of reintroducing you to who you were before all the conditioning kicked in, right? You and I reach a certain age, whatever age that is. And we have to admit that we look back, and this is going to be a focus of today's show, the difference between an artificial intellect and an all-natural intellect, right? When we first sat down to create this concept, to write the show, why did I pick all-natural being? Because I wanted the all-natural you, which I consider to be the very best parts of you, as opposed to the artificial intellect that we craft and create, that our circumstances, that our time in the labyrinth creates, and that most of us run around with today going, this is me. This is who I am. But what I'm interested in is the real you, the true you, the pre-watered down you, the you that you were sent here to be. So I've got a really great show today, all right? I think it's a really great show, but I'm excited to be here sharing it with you. As you know, All Natural Being, welcome here on IPMNation.com. Number one show on IPMNation.com, going on 3 months in a row now. Number one since its debut. And I think that's simply because all I do is try to focus when I sit down to write these shows every morning. All I do is focus on those things that you and I could do to continually remind ourselves of who we really are. Not our artificial intellect, not the things that have been constructed around us, but who we truly are at our core. And because that's the focus of the show, I believe, my heart, my estimation, that's why the show continues to be number one, because I think that a lot of us are looking forward to getting back to that all-natural being. We're looking forward to our preconditioned days, right? So, all right, we're going to go ahead and jump into it. Don't forget, allnaturalbeing.com. Head on over, send me an email. I'll send you one back. We'll hook up that way. 331-684-7685. 331-684-SOUL. Also, you can hit me at Brian Brawdy. It was at facebook.com/Brian Brawdy Official. The Brian Brawdy official page, leave me a message there, and also on Twitter at Brian Brawdy, because I really do, and that's a portion of what we're going to talk about this morning, but I really do focus on the things that are said to me. Sometimes they come in the form of emails or tweets or texts or phone calls. People, believe it or not, people come up to me on the street. But this morning's show, I want to drive home a point, and probably not to you, the listener, but I want to drive this point home to myself. And if you don't mind, I'd like you to just kind of hang out with me while I'm working through this process in my own mind. I had a little bit of an impromptu focus group over the weekend, where I had a chance to sit down with some great friends and basically let them say to me, all right, Brian, we've been listening to the show now for 3 months. You're going to sit down and just take this. We're going to tell you what we think. So it was, it's not always comfortable, right? You sit in and go, well, let me tell you what's wrong with you. And I go, I don't have time for the laundry list of things that are wrong with me, right? But very insightful nonetheless. So I want to get that. I want to get to that today, because I do want to make sure, as I've said in other shows, that if you're going to grant me an hour of your time, whether you listen live every morning, Monday through Friday at least, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Eastern Time, or you listen to either the two replays, the 11 a.m. Eastern or the 8 p.m. Eastern. I'm very honored that the good folks, including Matt and Jen at IPM Nation, are putting us on 3 times a day now. So if you don't want to listen to iTunes, we're still there with a 5-star rating, believe it or not. But over at iTunes, if you don't want to listen to the podcast, I guess that's what you call it, like a podcast library or show library of the different things we do. If you don't want to listen then you could come back, most certainly, and listen to, 7 or 11 or 8 p.m. But whenever you're listening, if you're going to give me an hour of your time, I want to make sure that this just isn't me in a bubble, right? Coming up with these ideas. And if they're not working for folks, then I want to hear about it right away, which is why I say I love the hate mail. Because ultimately you don't get hate mail. Ultimately you get, what do you get? You get pointers. You get some creative ideas. Well, I like to call it the rough and tumble of the road less traveled. When you throw yourself into that, you get some great ideas as to how we can make the show better each and every day. So I'm going to get to that. But before we do, we're talking about anaerobic aphorisms. Oh, what? I was going to tell you, what a weekend I've had. You just wouldn't believe it. But in any event. So we finished the show on Friday. Pretty fired up about the show. Apparently had some, a few little internet glitches here and there, but I got a lot of great compliments over the weekend about Friday's show. So we finish the show, I come in, and I have a full weekend planned, right? Like, we're starting with video here in a couple of weeks. We're going to have a webinar. There's going to be all kinds of cool things that are coming as we start to ramp up the other aspects of All Natural Being. Pretty soon, you'll be able to sit and watch the show from right here in the studio, if that's something that you'd like to do. So I get done with the show every day, and I start to kind of plot and plan what we're going to work on, over the next couple of, for this hour and then this hour. And so I'm sitting down at the computer, and I go, okay, great. Here's what I'm going to focus on. Here's my tending for the next 20 minutes, right? Because for me, I look at every hour as 3 20-minute victories, right? So what can I bang out in the next 20 minutes? That's how I look at my day. 20 minutes, small actions. And we're going to get to that here in a little bit. So in any event, on Friday, I'm sitting there, I get my books, I get my iPads, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. All of a sudden I look up and my laptop computer screen is black. It's dark. I guess that's what you call it. It's dark. So I go, oh, man, I must have, you know how your mind races. You go, oh, I must have set the timer, so it put itself to sleep. So I hit the button, nothing. Tap on the space bar again, nothing pops up. So I'm thinking, right, still not thinking anything bad, right? I'm just thinking, okay, so let's restart it. So I restart the computer, and the icon comes up, the apple comes up, and the computer's got like red lines, tiny, tiny red lines running through it. And I go, oh, this can't be good. So you know me, I do all the software resets, Control-Shift, P-R, Apple, Shift, Q-Z, whatever they are, right? There's a laundry list of them. I go through, nothing. Still this funky red lines, and the computer won't start up. It halfway reboots itself, and then it goes to black again. So I call up my Apple Care. I call up Apple Care, 1-888, whatever. Technically what you do is you're online, you send them a text on your phone, and they call you right back. So I send the text, they call me right back. And we go through all the software things. Really cool guy named Trevor at the other end of the phone, and Trevor goes, Bri, I hate to tell you this, but this is a hardware thing. This isn't anything we're going to be able to do on the phone. You're going to have to run your laptop back down to Naperville, which is the Apple where I live. You're going to have to run your laptop back down to Naperville. I go, great, Trevor, can you hook me up? It's like 10 a.m. I just finished doing the show, so it was early in the morning. Maybe 10 a.m., something like that. I go, all right, what's the fastest I can get in today? And he looks, and I can hear him clicking away on the keyboard. Right, hear him clicking away. He goes, fastest I can get you in is tomorrow at 3:30. And I'm like, 3:30. So it's like well over a day before I'm going to get in. And he goes, yeah, I'm sorry, that's the first available. So I said, okay, great, thanks. Lemonade out of lemons, right? Go ahead, hook me up with a 3:30. So now I'm looking at myself because as much as I kind of rail against it, I am somewhat a creature of habit. I have a ritual when I prepare these shows and I work, and I have my laptop and I have certain things and certain folders and, stream of consciousness stuff, what I type out. But what you might notice this morning when you went to pick up your anaerobic aphorism over on Facebook is the little meme cards, the little quote cards that normally pop up. Well, all of that artwork, everything that goes into making those fresh each day, well, that's all on a computer, which I don't have access to. So I'm thinking, okay, well, we'll do this, we'll do that. So here's what we're going to do this week. Probably for today, well, yesterday's anaerobic aphorism went up, as you know. So probably for today, and maybe even tomorrow, we're going to put up just the quote, right? Straight text, terribly boring. Facebook, I know, right? Can't compete against all the color and glitz and everything else. But we'll throw up the anaerobic aphorism. And then I think we're working on quite possibly doing a Facebook post live video for what the anaerobic aphorism will be. So we're working on that over the next couple of days. So we might use that temporarily to replace the quote cards. Because here's what happens. I get to Apple on Saturday, 3:30. Great guys there at the Genius Bar. Get there, they go through the whole thing. They go, Bry, video card, shot. I said, what? Oh, yeah, video cards, just toast. We ran a computer test the way only Apple can, right? We ran a computer test, and it's totally toast. We're going to have to send it back in. I go, okay, great. So we can get it out today. What do you figure? How many days? He goes, well, probably 3 to 4 days, maybe something like that. Says, but let me check and make sure that the truck hasn't left. I'm going to go back and talk to administration. Let me make sure the truck hasn't left. So, as you hear me say countless times, Irish luck, don't believe the hype. He comes back out from around, from the back room where he checked with administration. He comes back out and says, Brian, I'm sorry, the truck's already left. It's not going to go out till Monday morning. And I'm like, okay. So the clock will start Monday morning. He goes, yeah, because we hope maybe to have some answer for you by next Friday. And you know me. We've been hanging out a while now. I was like, all right. Thank you, sir. May I have another, right? Channel my inner Kevin Bacon. Lemonade out of lemons, however you want to call it. So we're going to be down a computer this week, which means a couple different things. You can probably hear a slightly different type of audio. So we're having to do it a little differently because, as you've heard me joke before, trying to produce these shows, I have a soundboard which goes into a computer which goes back up to IPM Nation, which is how we get the show. So now we're having to record it in a slightly different fashion. We're having to broadcast in a slightly different fashion because, of course, well, the laptop. Now, thankfully, I do, I think, a pretty decent job of always backing up my computer to the cloud. I think I do a pretty decent job of that. So thankfully, once whether they fix this one or I end up having to buy a new one, once the new computer gets here, I'll have, all of my bells and whistles right nearby as we produce these shows. And if you've listened in the past, that I produce these things by myself, so I sit here and have all this other stuff going on. So this week might be a little different. So I thank you for putting up with me in advance. Some of the things, right? That'll be slightly different, and the audio quality may be one of those things. But we're going to work really hard to make sure that in our downtime, right, the rough and tumble of the road less traveled, during my rough and tumble this week, we're hoping to kind of keep it smooth, as smooth as it ever is if you listen to my show, right? But we hope to keep it smooth and not too disruptive. Okay, enough about all that. So I want to get to today's anaerobic aphorism, and it is basically that those things that hold us back, encoded in those things, are also the opportunity, the fuel we need to launch us forward. So we're going to use that as a theme today. The things that hold us back, embedded in those things is the power to launch us forward. So we look at some of our shackles. We look at some of our chains. If you follow Wordsworth, shades of the prison house. We look at some of those prison houses, those things that are going to hold us back. And latent within all of those is the ability that holds us back. It can be a springboard for us to move us forward. So that's the anaerobic aphorism for today's show. Now, our 4 segments that I'd like to be able to get to. The first segment is called Wild at Heart. And we're going to look at why green time, as we're calling it, green time really is downtime. And it's the basis for all natural thinking, and that's going to be in segment number 1. Segment number 2 is the name of the game is the nuts and bolts of the now, or as I like to call it, the rough and tumble of the road less traveled. So we're going to be looking at, in segment number 2, name of the game, the nuts and bolts of the now. Now, segment 3, I call it cognitive carnivals, or as I like to say, serial thinking, and how it can get us in some serious trouble. And that's going to be the 3rd segment and the 4th segment, which I really hope we get to. You know how I get, sometimes we get a little, I get down my own rabbit hole here on the air and don't always make those segments. I'm hoping we're making the 4 segments today. And that segment is called Knowledge is Power. Obviously with the underlying question, who are you? Who are you? And we're going to return to that in segment 4. All right, so kicking it off, let me ask. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. How was your weekend? Hopefully your laptop didn't blow up on you. How was your weekend? Did you get a chance to do any of your 20-minute victories? How did it go? How was the weather by you? Reach out, let me know, 331-684-7685. Or as I say, well, let's hang out over at allnaturalbeing.com. Send me an email. I'll send you one back. And I know it's a big thing in this day and age. Everyone's asking for the email. Well, you have my word. We're never going to spam you. We're never going to leave your email information in the backseat of an Uber or a backseat of a taxi cab so that somebody else can get a hold of it. So if you send me an email, we're going to use it just for the ability for you and I to communicate. That's it. We're not going to farm out your information to anyone else. We're not going to come up with special offers. Oh, I had to email you right away and tell you about this special offer. Well, we're not going to do that. Right? It's just a way for us to be able to communicate some of the things that I've got coming up, but we're not going to use it the way I think some emails. You sign up for something now, and 30 minutes later you have 85 emails in your inbox. We're never going to treat it like that. So if you want to reach out, allnaturalbeing.com, give me your email. I'll send you back mine. We'll be able to hook up that way. All right. So this weekend, I talked about my impromptu focus group, some really good friends of mine, and 2 things that popped up on it. The first thing is, I understand that a lot of folks are not at all thrilled about my concept, right? It's fairly well entrenched, even though everyone and their brother now suggests that this whole concept of tying yourself to a goal is the greatest way to handicap yourself, the greatest way to handcuff yourself. So some of the feedback that I got this weekend is that, well, how can you slam goal setting? How can you constantly be talking about the carrot at the end of the stick? So I thought we could address that a little bit this morning. Or as I said in the open, I thought, I could work that out a little bit in my mind, and you all can kind of hang out with me as I do and give me some feedback. So here's my thing with goals. I tend to look at my life more as a tending, right? I'm tending towards a certain direction. Or I guess you could say I have a big picture, right? And although mine is kind of cloudy, mine is kind of foggy if I try to look too far forward into the future, my big picture is to make sure that you remember who you are. That's my calling. That's my purpose while I'm here, right? I'm like a giant eraser at the end of a number 2 pencil. So that throughout the day, the evening, whenever it is, if you and I are going to interact and there's things, there's the baggage. We talk about your philosophical entourage all the time, right? There's the baggage, there's your conditioning, there's the opinions of other people, the opinions of yourself for that matter, that are holding you back, that are keeping you from employing your superpowers, that are keeping you from full spectrum living, right? Keeping you from tapping into the truly unimaginable power of living in the present moment and releasing your all-natural being. So I like to think of myself as a scalpel, as a belt sander. Ooh, philosophical loofah, they say all the time in the opening. How about a belt sander that I can get in and help you strip away some of the conditioning that keeps you trapped, some of the prison house, again, to go back to Wordsworth. So that's my tending. That's my goal. I've been doing this for over 30 years now, 3 decades, ever since, as you know, ever since my father's suicide. Because I believe that the precursor to someone that would take their life, the precursor to a biological suicide, is a philosophical suicide, where we go ahead, we forget who we are. We forget everything that we're capable of. And we buy into this difference, as we'll get to in segment 4. We buy into an artificial intellect as opposed to your all-natural intellect. So when I come out and talk about no carrots at the end of the stick, no goals, what I'm simply suggesting, and again, you've heard me say countless times, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a licensed clinical social anything, I'm not a therapist, none of those are things. But what I am is I'm a fan of you. If you ever got an email from me, you see at the bottom it says I'm on your side even when you're not. Because it's easy for us to get caught up in our artificial intellect, our egoic mind. Not always easy to remember about our all-natural intellect and who we ultimately are. So that's my big picture. That's my tending. And when I speak out against goal setting, it's because sometimes we get so focused on the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, we don't see where we are. We don't see the things that in this moment are popping up to truly help us on our path. So for me, I guess we could look at it this way. You could call it a recipe. You could call it a formula. You could call it a strategy, if you like. A strategy for continually optimizing your outlook. Just an absolute optimization of your outlook through a reverence for randomness, through an absolute love of whatever the universe lobs at you in the moment. So for me, my anti-goal setting motif is that I have a motif. My motif is wanting to make sure, as I've said, that you remember who you ultimately are. That's my motif in life. It's not a goal, it's a motif. It's a tending. It's a general direction of what I hope I'm going to be able to do each and every moment that I'm here. So I have a big picture, but I have small action steps. And those small action steps are in the moment. So I talk all the time about magnify the moment. What is the moment doing for you right now? What is the road less traveled telling you right now? And that's the difference between having an etched in stone goal where we know you're born with a destiny, you're subject to fate throughout your life. It's the interaction, it's the percentage, it's the ratio of how much of your destiny wins out over how much of your fate, right? So there's a ratio, there's that number. But for me, having a goal at the end of the rainbow isn't the way my mind is situated. And as I said to my dear friends, this show may not be for you. People in pursuit of their all-natural being, I say at the time, you're a rare breed. And I don't mean to attach any type of hierarchical, I don't mean to it to say, oh, well, aren't we better than those people with their artificial intellects? Not necessarily better, no. Is it better for us in our life, particularly, not comparing ourselves to someone else? Absolutely. Absolutely it's better. Because God, however you define him or her, if you have a God, Big Bang, Big Breath, science, religion, spiritual, secular, whatever you want, I don't believe in that generating power. I don't believe it created any junk. I really don't. I think your all-natural being is the key to full spectrum living. It's the key to living a life where you're truly thrilled with yourself. Just an absolute thrill of a life. That's what you're entitled to when you were granted your all-natural being in the first place. So whether you're a scientist or a spiritualist, doesn't matter to me. Don't care. You should care about how you view it. But for me, it doesn't matter. Because outside of the debate between science and religion, my tending, my big picture, is to use my small action steps, my fingerprints of providence, in the moment, to continually optimize your outlook, to reshape the vision you have of yourself when you look in the mirror. And for me, in suggesting that sometimes we get too caught up in our goals, so let's agree to do this. Let's say that we'll talk about all-natural being as a recipe. If you want to work a couple hours a day, entrenched in this concept of some future goal, great. I'm simply asking that the special ingredients, maybe the super sauce, maybe she's got such a great recipe. Remind me of my grandmother when she would cook. She's got great recipes. She throws in a little handful of this and a sprig of that and a teaspoon of this. Then we could agree upon then, if you're of that mindset, what we could agree upon is every so often give me a 20-minute victory. Every so often sprinkle in a healthy dose of magnifying the moment. That's all. So if it's too uncomfortable, right, the vertigo starts, the vertigo of freedom. If the vertigo of being free from a down the road idea in your life, if that's too much, I appreciate that. So what do we say that we'll agree for a 20-minute victory to abandon it long enough? Have just an absolute radical irreverence for the status quo in your life, while employing a radical reverence for randomness. Then as soon as you get out of that 20-minute victory, you'll feel it in your heart. You'll feel it in your spine. You'll feel it in your gut. You'll know if this worked for you or didn't. And then by all means, go back to your goal-setting ideas. Now, let me just say, it is my understanding, it is my absolute knowledge that one day you're going to come out of that 20-minute victory and go, you know what, Brian isn't as bat crap crazy as he sounds, right? You'll feel it in your gut. You'll go, yeah, there's goals, but I absolutely see what he's doing when he comes to focusing. Terence McKenna, the doctor and author, called it a clue sifting. Clue sifting, right? You're constantly looking through what's going on around you. A clue sifting intellect. Or as Jung put it, with this concept of synchronicity. He says that synchronicity is nothing more than an ever-present reality. It's always here, ever-present reality for those that have eyes to see. It's my feeling, my absolute knowledge, that if you give me, and by me, I mean you, a 20-minute victory, every so often they're scalable. You do a 20-minute victory, you can mix or match. You could have 2, you could have 3, you can do however you like. But it's my absolute knowledge that when you practice these 20-minute victories and witness firsthand the synchronicities that will bubble up, right? Not asking you to abandon your big picture. You still have your tending, as I do. But for 20 minutes, let's say you and I focus on the small action steps. We focus on those fingerprints of providence. We focus on the fingerprints of providence and see what comes of it. See what comes of it. Alan Watts says that life has a voice. Well, if we focus to that voice, if we bring to it Terence McKenna's clue-sifting intellect, or we pay attention to Jung's concept of a synchronicity, ever-present reality for people that just have the visual acuity to detect it, right? If you and I are going to be detectives. Now, it's a fair critique of me to say, well, Brian, of course you're an ex-cop, so you're always going to be looking for fingerprints. Absolutely fair assessment. Absolutely. All I'm suggesting is give it a try for 20 minutes. And at the end of the 20 minutes, if it didn't work for you, well, what do we know? Well, it didn't work for you, right? But if all natural being, which is why I say it takes a rare breed of mental intellect to want to abandon the artificial, replacing it with the all natural in your life. So do it for 20 minutes. Do it for 20 minutes. Optimize your outlook. Push the peripheries. We hear all this time, oh, you got to have stretch goals. Or you could be enough of a badass that whatever the universe throws at you in the moment, that's what you adopt. Whatever fate tries, you're in the moment with a counter move, right? One big martial arts, mixed martial arts in the cage moment where we go in and we go, okay, great. Here's what I'm going to do right now. Here's how I'm going to counter fate's move. And when we stay in this moment, when we ignore from the Greek mythology the siren's call. Remember Ulysses on his way back? Sirens are sitting over there on the rocks. His crew comes through on their boat. And they're singing that song, come on over, Ulysses, come on over. And what happens to most boats, most sailors? They fall for the outside voice. They fall for the distant island. They hear this. Then they sail over, crash on the rocks, and you get where the story's going. So for 20 minutes, no sirens call. No pots of gold at the end of the rainbow. No hope. No dreams. No goals. No carrots on the end of the stick. And you come out of that 20-minute victory, and absolutely, I'm not here to suggest how you should live your life. I'm simply here to remind you that you have an all-natural being. You have an all-natural intellect. And there's a counterbalance between your all-natural intellect and your artificial intellect, your egoic mind. So in the moment, you decide what's best for you. That's all I'm suggesting. So in the future, when we hear me, and you're going to, with my anti-goal message, it's because I've found what works for me. Perhaps it works for you as well. We'll never know till you try it. 20 minutes. 20-minute victory. 1/72 of your day. Because I think you're absolutely worth it. I'm absolutely a fan of yours. And it's my gig, which I love, but it's my gig to remind you of who you truly are when you look in the mirror. All right, so that was the focus group. Let me say this before we start to move on, and now I got to pack in our 4 segments. If at any point, I would love for you to be in the focus group. Send me an idea. Go, hey, Bri, I thought this was pretty cool. Could you clarify this a little more? Could you, or that's absolutely mashugana. That's just bat crap crazy. You're insane. Great, thank you very much. Always nice to meet a fan. Send me the critiques because I would love to have you as a part of a focus group. Yeah, I get all kinds of great emails and things that people say about, what all natural being, not me, not the show, but the concept, what the concept of all natural being has done for them in their lives. All types of comments of what's happened for folks over the last 3 months when they reconnect with who they really are, where they don't accept an ambivalent attitude about themselves or their lives, that they get in and agitate their apathy. There's my list, my run of the letter A for you. They get in and they agitate their apathy because they're tired of the atrophy in their life. That said, I would love for you to continue to be a part of my focus group. If there's things that you hear that you disagree with, I'd love to hear it. If there's things that you agree with, obviously, I would love to hear it. If there are questions that you have, or there's other things where you think, oh, what about this? What about that? I'm still working on being able to take live calls on the show, so we'll be doing that as well. But as it comes to the debate of my friends in the focus group of the weekend that says, how can you keep slamming goals? Let me say this. We look at it as a special blend. How about we agree that we will blend for the people not quite ready? Because I'm not saying, like if you've ever quit smoking, I'm not saying go cold turkey. I'm not saying abandon Dante, abandon hope, all ye who enter here, right? I'm not saying that. I'm saying for 20 minutes of the day, contemplate this concept of your all-natural being. Contemplate the concept of fingerprints of providence Now let's jump right to segment two. We'll come back to segment one. Let's jump right to segment two. Because I say the name of the game, the nuts and bolts of the now. It's this moment's nomenclature. Right? Because there are no wrong turns. Whatever the moment throws up doesn't mean it's a wrong turn. Because it's only half of the equation. The other half of a wrong turn is that you turned in the right direction now. You know where the right direction is. So there's no such thing as a wrong turn. The name of the game is the nuts and bolts of the now. And I absolutely have faith in the universe, providence, however you define it, presenting the clues for those of us, again, going all McKenna, Terence McKenna on us, the clue-sifting intellects. If you sift the clues, the universe will give you more clues to look for. The universe digs grit. It digs boldness. It digs the concept of being a detective and working to unfold in this moment the small action steps. I get asked a lot about my definition of consciousness. And for me, I look at consciousness as like a DJ. You ever go to a club or listen to the radio? Consciousness, in its all-natural form, consciousness is ready for whatever the universe throws at us. In our artificial intellect, our egoic mind, it's as if it begins to believe that the DJ is actually the artist playing the song. Well, you and I both know most DJs, unless you happen to be an artist as well, excuse me, most DJs just take a song and play it. But they don't own that song. That song doesn't become a part of them. It's not their song per se. And that's what consciousness is. Consciousness is that portion where a thought pops up and you're the DJ. You got to decide, am I going to play this? Used to be 45s, right? I'll date myself again. You're going to play this EP. You're going to play this track. You're going to play this 45. I don't know if anyone old enough to remember, but when Bye Bye Miss American Pie drove a Chevy to the levee, when that first came out, you had your 45 and you had to flip it over to get to the second half of the song. Right? But all the DJ does is take the song and play the song. He doesn't own the song. He doesn't. That song doesn't become a part of him. He's a DJ. Something comes up in the queue. Yeah, I think I'll play this one or that one. So all consciousness is, in its all-natural form, it's the nuts and bolts of the now, waiting to see what the universe is going to do to show us our path. Artificial intellect buys into the songs, gets all caught up in our binge thinking, all caught up in the cognitive carnivals. I guess we might as well go ahead and jump into segment 3 now. We'll blend them together. But the name of the game, nuts and bolts of the now. Or the cognitive carnival, the monkey mind of the Buddhists. I saw this quote the other day. Someone talked about having a mind that's like a hamster wheel. Getting in and doing it over and over and over and over and over and over again. That's a cognitive carnival. That's the serial thinking. That's the binge thinking we do. And depending upon what stage you are at in your gig, what stage you are at your life, you have acres and acres and acres of thought packed into our brains, into our minds. And consciousness then is just the decision. Are you going to buy into the cognitive carnival? You're going to continue with all the serial thinking. What if? How about this? What about that? Or are you going to go, nah, I think I'm done. I'm not going to play that soundtrack today. I'll wait and see what the universe, again, the rough and tumble of the road less traveled. I'll wait and see what the universe throws up for me. And this quote always gets me in trouble. You know me. If you've been listening along, you know I have no filter. The promised land, as I say, the promised land is a fool's paradise. Because if you can't recognize this moment as the promised land, when we get to the promised land, whatever it is, however you define it, how will you know that you're there? If you can't recognize it in this moment, maybe you're never going to have the visual acuity to recognize it. So don't buy into the cognitive carnival, the serial thinking, the binge thinking. Your consciousness, you're absolutely right, it has acres and acres and acres and acres of thought, acres of soundtracks, of songs that your consciousness, your DJ, could opt to play. And if there are songs, if there are thoughts that help support your all-natural being, give them a rip. If they help unleash your superpowers, give them a rip. If they help to optimize your outlook, give them a rip. But if they're ones that tend to entrap you, that tend to shackle you, to tether you, to hold you back, don't put them in the queue. Don't queue them up. Don't load them onto your iPhone. Don't fall for serial thinking and binge thinking, where your mind, just like on that hamster wheel, over and over and over and over and over. Now, that's not to say that it's always easy. Believe me, standing there at Apple, when he came back out and said, hey, look, we're not going to be able to get this computer out. He's like, oh, man, you just missed the window. I go, I didn't miss the window. I couldn't get an appointment till 3:30. Then your mind starts to go, all right, how am I going to do the show? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? How am I going to do all those other things, right? That's the serial thinking. So then what did I do? Did my own best acronym. Breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, take action. I go, well, I got a free weekend now. I can read that book I wanted to get to because I'm not going to be able to use my laptop to do any work. So right as my mind got ready to jump on the hamster wheel, I was able to breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, take action, and stop the monkey mind from going crazy. And that's what you and I get to decide in every moment. If consciousness is a DJ, which it is, you're the DJ. You decide the soundtrack of your mind. You decide what songs are queued up. Another part of what came up in the focus group this weekend is, the difference between offended and offendable. And I think for me, the best way to approach it is to say that when we let outside opinion injure us, we have to admit that we're a part of the attack. Because I suspect there's all kinds of people that have all kinds of things to say about me, but if I don't know they're saying them, I don't let them in. It doesn't derail me. So I think, how about Epictetus? Epictetus had a great line. It says, the greater the difficulty, the more glory in surmounting it. He wrote that skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. So all I'm simply suggesting that when someone says something that's offensive, instead of being offended, use that as your storm and your tempest. Let's say Epictetus is right, that skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. Could be. Or how about Andre Gide? He says he owes a ton to his friends. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he owes a ton to his friends. But even more to his enemies, right? I think he probably would have been keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer. But he says that the real person springs to life under a sting even better than under a caress. Think about that. The real person, your all-natural being, springs to life under a sting than under a caress. So life's full of stings. Life's full of pins. We just have to decide, are we going to let them derail us? Look, everybody's got an opinion. Just go online. Good Lord. Everybody's got an opinion. But what you and I have to decide is we're going to let those opinions injure us. Now, before we get all high and mighty and go, oh, well, you're right. I'm going to make sure that I don't listen to any outside opinion. Well, what if it's the inside opinion? What if it's our artificial intellect? Which, if you and I take the time to tell the truth, it is. It's our artificial intellect that keeps us in trouble most times. It keeps us shackled. Whether it's fear, whether it's apathy, whether it's uncertainty. But that the negative that comes, the opinions of other people that come, God love you. What does Gibran say? Out of suffering have merged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. The most massive characters are seared with scars. But scars on the outside. Incongruity is only skin deep. When you remember who you are, it can scar you all you want. It's not gonna sideline your soul. Don't let it. So when I say that only the offendable can be offended, it's for that reason. Don't let them in. People are people. They're going to do what they do to get by. And sometimes those stings, Shakespeare's slings and arrows, right? But for the anaerobic aphorism, everything that holds you back has the potential to launch you forward. Well, if you have some of those stings holding you back, if you have some scars that Gibran spoke of, or how about Hemingway? The world breaks everyone. And afterwards, many are strong at the broken places. That the rough and tumble of the road less traveled helps us recognize who we ultimately are. So instead of being offended, we can just go, great. Love your opinion. Not going to let it alter my outlook. And again, unless, of course, it's great advice like I got from the focus group this weekend of be a little more direct, be a little more clear in exactly what it is that you're saying. But for people to be critical, just to be critical, don't let them injure your outlook. Why would you? Why let them dictate the song that's going to be queued up? Your consciousness, you're simple a DJ. Meditation, here's the thing. And as you know, I write these shows each morning. I come in and, you have these blogs, newspaper reports, TV reports all over the place. I don't know where it is. I should probably look it up for you. But this whole concept of mindfulness, it is everywhere now in the media, on the web, and the like. Mindfulness. But if we could distill it down, mindfulness is just the recognition, the absolute, take it to the bank, count on it, understanding that consciousness is simply the recognition of your inner DJ. That's it. But you decide what songs are going to be cued. You want to think crappy things about yourself? You're the DJ. You want to think great things about yourself? You're the DJ. Well, this happened to me or that happened to me. You're the DJ. If you decide to be stung by something, or you decide to be caressed by something, according to Gide, this whole quest of mindfulness, this whole quest of enlightenment, this whole quest of mental well-being is simply recognizing all you are as a consciousness is a DJ. And as the DJ, you not only have the absolute ability, you have the absolute obligation to decide what song you play. You're spinning the turntable. You're cueing the iPad, the iPhone, whatever it is. You're the DJ. All right, I want to go ahead and jump to let's see, we're going to run out of time. All right, here's what, and this also out of the focus group. And again, thank you to everyone that participated this weekend. I had someone else say to me, man, it must have been tough to sit there and of course, people just kind of queuing up all the things that they think could be better in the show. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I appreciate the time. And I want you to do the same thing. If there's things that I can do to make this show better, I'm all ears. I'm all ears. So please reach out. Let me know. 331-684-7685, 331-684-SOUL. I'm all over, right? Because a part of my clue-sifting intellect is to listen to the clues that you all give me, right? The lefts, the rights, the ups, the downs, the pivots, the swerves. No dead ends, only cul-de-sacs. No wrong turns, just movement. Just the constant decision to persistently, passionately optimize our outlooks. Okay, so the segment number 4, I called it Knowledge is Power. And it won't surprise you to know now that I think the number one knowledge that you and I can possess, especially for all the craziness going on in the world. You see what's going on in the European Union? Britain deciding to tap out? You and I can't control what happens at a global scale like that. Big picture, or even in our own lives. We can't control what coincidence is going to throw at us. But what we can control is how you and I respond to it. That's being a true survival expert, right? For those of you that don't know, or those of you that do know me, I've spent a good bit of time out in the middle of nowhere. And because of that, I was given the label of survival expert, the green RV, which I wanted to take time to tell you that another great report popped up from some doctors in Australia that did a huge study that said, look, you spend 20 minutes in a local park, you spend 20 minutes out in the green, you spend 20 minutes in a wilderness environment, right? Even if it's a manicured park in the middle, you're in Manhattan, you run down the Central Park, that they're saying it's great. It's great for your stress, it's great for anxiety, it's great for your blood pressure. So wild at heart, why is that such a big deal? Because green time really does equal downtime. It really does. It's a return of your all-natural being, because in nature, when you spend time in a park like that, and there are countless stories. I think I said earlier, right, Alan Watts, life has a voice. Well, when we're alone in nature, we stand a better chance of hearing that voice, of dovetailing our heart and our head with our natural surroundings. So if I'm wrong, an all-natural being isn't what I purport it to be, then if I spent time in parks in Australia, if I spent time in nature, none of it there wouldn't be a medicinal effect, right? Because to me, nature is both a balm, it's a soothing gel, right? It's a aloe vera for your attitude. But nature is both a balm and a solvent. Because when you're out in nature, it works pretty good, like the big eraser at the end of a number 2 pencil, like I call myself, right? I'm the loofah. Nature's a pretty decent loofah, and that's why we get stories like this, because we are wild at heart. And green time equals downtime, and downtime from the craziness that can be the world gives us the chance to reconnect with ourselves. Because it's my belief, it's not about what you get, but what you get rid of. Mental health is not about what you get, it's what you get rid of. And that's why spending time in nature is such a big deal. All right, sorry guys. I wanted to get to this whole other segment. Let's do this. Tomorrow, let's spend a good bit of time on artificial intellect versus all-natural intellect. But what I'll say in setting this up is that, remember Abraham Maslow? Maslow had a great quote. It says, the story of the human race is the story of men and women selling themselves short. Selling themselves short. That's a great line. So let's look at that tomorrow. Let's look at the countless other, when we think about even the Epictetus quote, right? About difficulties. How it's our greatest storms and tempests that make us skillful pilots. Not if we sell ourselves short. So let's save tomorrow what would have been segment 4 today. Let's save it for tomorrow. And we're going to do knowledge is power. And we're going to go over some pretty big quotes. And by quotes, I mean thoughts of psychiatrists and psychologists and philosophers throughout our history, throughout our family tree. that believe if we're selling ourselves short, that's the precursor, that's the recipe to unhappiness, to unfulfillment. But if we do a personal appraisal, a true personal appraisal of all of our natural resources, right? You and I are one big skin bag full of buried treasure. But if we sell ourselves short, that's not going to work really well for the kid, is it? Right? If we sell ourselves short by thinking we are the songs our DJ plays, we're selling ourselves short. So before I get to the top of the hour, let's do this today. One 72nd of your day. Pay attention to the things that hold you back. Understand, just like drawing back a bow, maybe like a slingshot. Drawing back a slingshot. By being pulled back in the direction opposite of where you thought you were tending. Inherent in that pull is the ability to launch yourself forward. And it's my estimation that that ability is also embedded in the truly unimaginable power of living in the present moment. Because when you and I show up for the present moment, that's the tension between what we know is our destiny and what fate is trying to do to mess with that destiny. So there is constantly that tension. And it's that tension that has a tipping point. And at that tipping point, we go, nope, I'm out of here. Time to move forward. All right. Again, my apologies for the audio today. Right. My apologies for how all that has worked out. But I wanted to be able to get this show to you. So if the audio quality is a little off, we're going to be working on it all week long. I want to thank the good folks at the Metropolitan Co-working Space, downtown Aurora, the home of 14 Blends. Also, my friend Jen at IPM Nation is feeling a little under the weather. So, Jen, please know that I'm thinking about you. And then also to my family and friends that were a part of this weekend's focus group, thank you so very much. Please continue to call me on the carpet. You got to know. I'm not going to let you sweep me under the rug, but I really appreciate you calling me out on the carpet. And I want you to do the same thing. I want you to feel free. 331-684-7685. Hit me up on Facebook. Hit me up on Twitter. You know all the places I'm hanging out. allnaturalbeing.com. Send me your email. I'll send you one of mine. So tomorrow we're going to really focus on this concept between artificial intellects and all natural intellects. But I want to thank you for hanging out today. Remember, get outside, spend some time in nature, even if it's 20 minutes. What if these doctors are right? What if I'm right? What if reconnecting with nature reconnects you with who you truly are? That spending time in nature really does remind you that the name in the game is the nuts and bolts of the now. The rough and tumble of the road less traveled, believe me, nature's going to want to present you with that. Let's, for 20 minutes, be done with serial thinking. Be done with binge thinking. Just for a little bit. Just for a little bit. Let's focus on who we were before all of our conditioning. And people say, well, how are we going to do that? You'll know. You'll know. Breathe in, exhale, scan the horizon, take action. You'll feel those thoughts start to bubble up. All right, we're going to go ahead and get out of here. Thank you so much, as always, for hanging out with me, whether you're listening live or you're hitting one of the replays or you're listening to us on iTunes. Thank you so very much. I'm really excited now. It's kind of like, I can't wait for tomorrow's show. We're going to spend some time kicking around this concept of knowledge is power. When you remember who you are, life is not only a beautiful gig, but it is just the thrill of a lifetime. All right, have a great day. Be nice to yourself. Be nice to the people around you. I'll go ahead and hang out with you in the morning. Take care.
You've been listening to All Natural Being with Brian Brawdy.
Join us live every Monday through Friday, 7 to 8 a.m. Eastern.
Also, check us out around the clock at allnaturalbeing.com.
Until then, always remember to bring your own bold.
IPMNation.com.